Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Hey,
DM.
DM.
No, it was connecting.
Wait, no. 1, 2, 3.
Hey, DM.
Absolutely.
Good try, guys. Good try. We'll get it
We
one
tried that
day.
time.
One day.
Well, welcome back to our table. We left off. You guys had been swallowed into a whirlpool.
Fun times.
Little sign floating in the middle, pointing down. Destiny, your final destination. Fun things. Let's start off with our intro. Actually, before we go, thank you so
Let's start
much,
off with our
Jojo.
intro.
Dog does not like that idea.
Let's start off with our outro.
Okay, actually, before we do go on, you guys have all leveled up. You're level 4 now.
Yeah.
Super exciting. You're ready to take on the world.
No.
Nothing can stop you.
No.
How great is that?
Can I just sneak past everything? Will that be fine?
You can attempt.
I can try. It would be the one time I'd, fail my dexterity.
Do you have any announcements before we go, or
I
any?
had surgery and I'm still sore, so I can't do Bass voice. The end.
Yeah.
And I'm sick, so I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah, so we're all getting over a range of sickness at this point. It's been a long time coming. We missed last week. My apologies for that. I was very, very sick. No. We good to go then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Danny?
Me?
You good? You good to go?
Are you dying?
You're in a show.
I
Good
asked-
job.
I was in a drag show.
That was exciting. That was fun. We all missed it. I was very, very sick.
Yeah,
I was
literally
very
sure it was
delirious
great.
that day.
All
right
of them
after
ditched
we
me.
got off.
I saw your YouTube videos.
That's okay. I took Reese home, and then, half a week later, I got really mad because I'm like, I hope it wasn't fucking Reese who got me sick.
No, it was Reese.
Well,
Sorry,
if it's any consolation, my parents think I might have caught strep throat,
High
Oh.
five.
which is fun.
Throat buddies.
What else?
Well,
We're all dying.
if
That's
you
the
subscribe,
news.
I get to say hi to you.
every day.
So subscribe.
They can't. We're not partnered with Twitch.
What?
They can't subscribe yet.
What do you
They
mean?
can subscribe to our famous Instagram at Hey Dungeon Master.
Okay,
That's
you
true.
can. What
You
is
can
it?
also subscribe to us
can-
on YouTube.
Do we have a Facebook page?
No.
Okay, you can't go to our Facebook page.
You can
because
go to our
that doesn't
Twitter.
work. You can go to our Twitter. You can go to our Instagram.
Instagram and
Um,
Twitter are on the banner on the bottom of the screen.
You can also go to our YouTube.
Why don't,
um,
Which
instead
we
of
haven't
Instagram, Why
linked.
don't we put in your YouTube? Because that's more.
Because our YouTube is just Hey Dungeon Master. It's literally
Okay, our Instagram,
Hey
if
Dungeon
you can't
Master.
see it, is at Hey Dungeon Master. Our YouTube is
Hey Dungeon Master. I think there's actually spaces in
There
between.
are, yeah. Good job. And-
I changed the grammar. Someone messed it up.
And Twitter is Hey DM Official. That was me who messed that up. It was just Hey Dungeon Master, and I was like, I don't know how to fix it.
You just put a space between.
No, it didn't work. It was like,
Your space bar was
It required my magic.
so yeah.
All
And then
right.
also you can follow me on Instagram.
No.
No.
No. Okay.
Well, yeah, no, you'll
I have
get
a bell in
spammed.
my ear.
Introduction.
You know that feeling when you're sitting there and then all of a sudden it starts ringing.
Yeah.
That's called
It's always fun.
tinnitus.
Oh, really?
Well, a little.
Interesting facts from Danny's corner.
All right.
Thank you for subscribing to
She'll be here all
KDM
day.
Facts Weekly.
Yeah.
It's not Sawbones, but I still got medical facts.
Okay, let's jump right into the intro.
He did. Okay.
You become aware of two very important facts in quick succession.
Who's Danny?
Firstly, spread out beneath you are the gentle white sands of an island, a smattering of buildings dotting the jungle landscape that rises to a small mountain at the isle's center. Calm, turquoise waves lap against the shoreline, the glimmer of a colorful reef hidden in their shallow depths. The second fact is that you are able to notice all of this for the sole reason that you are currently falling thousands of feet towards the island.
Well,
Around you are the others of your party, each in the same state you had been in before the entire debacle with the sirens. Your bags have returned to you and all your items with them. What is missing, however, is a small detail. The sea serpent and all of her crew, that is.
oh,
What?
Oh.
Casting a glance around, you cannot see them through the strange tunnel of water you are falling through. Have they been separated from you? Lost to the sea, or simply vanished in the wind? Panic seems to hit at this point. The stark fear of impacting the fast-approaching land less and less appealing with every foot you fall. But you're not falling anymore. No, your descent has been stopped by a sharp tug at your shoulder blades that yanks you left into the wall of this watery tunnel. And once again, you feel yourself slip from consciousness, with only a moment to realize what is happening. Because there, above you, black scaled wings spread to catch the air. Its gray and gold scaled snout twisted with determination, flies the largest beast you have ever seen. A dragon.
Dragon.
Wait, sorry, the dragon.
My kind.
A dragon.
Okay.
The largest
Hey, Timothy.
creature you have ever seen.
How you doing today, Tom?
You wake from your second bout of unconsciousness in a very different state than the former. Because now, rather than falling thousands of feet towards an island, you stand in a small, offset room in an old-fashioned diner.
This is why you're asking us questions.
Sorry, do you mean like a bar that like in D&D would be, or like
Like
one of
our
our
type of-
60s?
What
Our
the fuck?
60s diners.
Do we have those pin-up dresses?
No, you are wearing
Done.
your normal clothes.
Oh,
You have
okay.
all of your items and your packs with you, everything that you've left in your bunk or left scattered around on the boat. They've all been returned to you, but the boat and her crew are all gone. And you are currently standing, the five of you, in the small entrance alcove into this old 60s style diner. There's a bunch of those booths and seats done in a nice kind of red leather, a couple of tables spread out, a black and white checkerboard floor, the little bar stools and top, old record machine in the corner. Classical. Very classical. Outside the windows lies a stranger sight. Swirling. Black and gray and gold all whipped together in an almost sandstorm type of way. The doors behind you don't budge when you try to open them, but the doors in front of you, leading farther into the diner, do. And, as you turn to go in, you see, etched into the glass of the doors leading outside, the name of this diner. Destiny.
This is Night Vale.
Your final destination.
This sounds like Night Vale.
Well, I mean, we could literally be in one of the movies. Final,
Destination.
yeah, that. Destination. That didn't work.
Cool.
Oh no.
So you guys are standing in the boot rack kind of room in the front of the diner. So there's the doors leading outside into the strange sandstorm, and the doors leading farther into the actual thing. And we begin.
I'm sorry, I had my priority there.
Shin visible.
Yeah.
Visibility for Shin.
Shin likes visibility.
So sorry, we're still in the diner.
You're in the diner. You're in the little like mud room of it.
Would we recognize it, like as part of not
You
our
guys
world?
would. It doesn't. It looks strange to your characters, just because it's a bit of a weird sight. But you can vaguely see that it's some sort of restaurant or tavern.
What kind of tavern is this? See, I can't do fast right now. Oh, hey guys, I just spoke.
Where's the barkeep?
Good question. Only a perception.
Well, okay. Good thing I've got plus a lot.
Plus a lot.
Oh, good thing I've got plus a lot. That's a 13.
13. Okay.
It's not here.
The diner is empty. No patrons at its tables or its booths. No one is waiting for a morning order of coffee at the bar.
Wait, can we tell it's morning?
It is morning. It is lit outside. There's no real way of knowing the time. You can't get an understanding of where the sun would be in the sky and everything. But it is soothing, and you do feel like it's pretty early. It's got that kind of aura around it.
So would it be either like really early or really late?
Yeah.
Okay.
You do, however, manage to spy a small door, one of those metallic swing doors with the little porthole window in it. A bit of steam pours out the side of the door leading up, but there is no waitress or cook in sight. Opening the actual doors to enter into the diner, there's a small bell that dings across the door top, and there is a sign sat next to one of the little podiums where the waitress would greet you, that says, "Please seat yourselves."
Can we read that?
And
read?
it's
No,
a bit
not
strange.
Can we read? Like,
Can
is it
Charlotte
our
read?
language?
It's a bit strange
Right.
because you look at it and it seems to morph and change as it goes, but you can each read it because it is done in each of your first languages. It is Dwarvish to Baz, and it is Elvish, done in the Drow Elvish for Shin. It is Dragonborn for Kiza, and Common for Charlotte, and Tabak. It starts off in a strange script that seems like Common, older than that, and then it morphs through Dragonborn and then into Dwarvish for you.
I sit down in the middle booth.
Okay, yeah, so there's about 4 booths down in like a corner rotation on this side of the diner, and the same thing on the other one, less so on that left side because there's a door that leads to what probably be a bathroom.
I'll sit closer to the window.
Yep.
Does the strange contraption near the end of the hall that has a big glass thing,
Yep.
does it interest me?
It's pretty weird looking. Like you've definitely not seen something like it.
It looks like it has buttons, though.
Yeah, it does have buttons.
How many buttons does it have?
It has a good range of about 50 buttons.
Do I need a D100 for this?
Sure.
Hey, screw you.
Are
I
you just
wanted to
gonna?
go
Are you
check out
walking
the
over to go and play with it?
Yes, I want to go play with it.
Okay, cool. So it's an older machine to us. It looks quite new to you, to Charlotte. It's done in this very, very lovely kind of brown polished wood, the glass top over a collection of what look like records that have been laid out and sequenced and everything. There is, on a little platform in the center, what looks like the tiniest band you've ever seen. Like, they're the size of, like, they're like mice size, and they've each got their own little instruments, these little kind of wooden figures that are carved, and they don't currently look to be playing anything. There's no music and everything. But as you approach, they seem to lurch slightly into a ready position.
You guys are adorable! How do I get you to play?
They don't respond.
Well, that's rude.
Roll to figure it out.
Guess I gotta. Well, that's an 8. Do I add? No, I should add my wisdom.
Yeah, add your wisdom.
That's a +5. That's a 13.
13? Okay. It's a bit strange at first, and it takes you a good minute to figure out what it's trying to do. But there is a small slot that looks about the size of a coin on one side, and then the multitude of buttons laid out.
I run over to Baz. Mr. Banham!
What?
Can I borrow one of your ammos?
My what?
One of your ammos. Your things. Your little things. Your little things, you know?
I have a candle.
No, not a candle. Like the little
Can I get
The-
out of
the
the
gold-
booth and just like
the gold things. The gold.
show me where?
Okay,
Just guide
I
me.
show him.
Okay, yeah, you guide him over. Baz, this is a pretty interesting thing to you. Firstly, because of the little band sitting inside of it. Also because sketched on top of these little buttons are little ruins and stuff that you can read that do read the title of famous songs you've heard before.
Like Dwarvish songs, or just like?
Just all types of songs.
You know
There's a couple of Dwarvish on
Wait,
one
no,
side,
not
and
right.
Elvish on the other. Some normal common tavern songs. There's one section that's done with the typical Dragonborn chants and stuff. And then there's 3 buttons at the very bottom right-hand corner that are done in some script you can't read, but it's very flowy and nice.
Is there a place to put in a coin?
Yeah, there's a small slot next to
Does
the
it
buttons.
say what type of coin?
It doesn't. It looks like a smaller slot, so it probably wouldn't take one of the larger coins like a gold coin. But it does look like it could fit a silver or a bronze, but you're not sure what.
I'll put a silver in.
Okay.
And 1 second.
The end one. The end one.
Wait, I have to roll.
No, the end one. Do it.
You can just pick one.
I want to roll.
You can just.
Okay, I hit that button.
The very end one,
Sure, yeah.
bottom right.
The flowy one.
There's 3 of them.
Yeah, one of them. The second one.
Okay, you
I
let
like
the
number
second
2.
one down. And the front of the little band has like this little dude with a microphone stand and a little like fedora hat, and he takes the hat off and tips it towards you guys. And then the band begins to play this tune, and it starts off quite slow and melodic, and then it rises up to a faster pitch and stuff, and it starts to get kind of like a swing dance almost.
When the music starts playing, Baz is gonna scream and kick it. Because like, what the fuck? It's not a human.
You kick it, and it stutters for a second, and then it continues to play.
Stop! The mini band wants to play!
There's no human.
Don't you see those small people?
There would.
They play the song. Let them play their song.
Demonic. And I walk away.
Is there a door that leads to outside?
There's the main doors that lead outside, but there doesn't seem to be another exit.
Can I leave?
No, the doors leading into the sandstorm are locked.
Okay.
Or
You said there was like a
approximately.
big door with like a.
There's the silver door
Yeah.
with the porthole that leads into what you can assume would probably be a kitchen or some sort. And then there's a second door that leads into a washroom.
I want to go into the kitchen, or at least attempt to.
Okay. Shin?
I think Shin's honestly standing in one spot looking around. He is very confused.
Okay, Tavik?
Yeah, he's really confused too.
Okay, so the 2 of you are just kind of standing next to the front entrance. Baz and Charlotte have wandered off. Baz had taken a table right next to the window, a nice booth, before Charlotte had dragged him over to the strange contraption that's just started to play music. And Kiza has begun to make her way across this diner to the door. And it is actually, you get to about the edge of the bar when the door flings open, and out steps a woman.
A woman.
A woman. And she's
Roll to see if she's attractive.
an older woman.
Does it look like I care?
Probably in her late 60s, kind of. She's a little bit wrinkled up and everything. She's got
Gorgeous.
lovely black
Baz
curls
is
that have
like,
been.
girl.
She's got lovely black curls that have been tied up, streaks of gray through them.
Does she look like those like girls in the 60s diners? Like she's wearing
Yeah.
like that? Oh my god.
She's got the little dress and the apron on. She's not wearing roller skates, sadly.
Oh no.
But she does have a nice pair of flats on.
What did you do?
It's all Elvis Presley parodies.
What?
Well, no, he almost got us copyrighted, but I think it's You Are Nothing But a Hellhound.
Okay, guys, we don't need any more mute strikes on our channel.
No, but yeah.
It's a parody though.
But she
a
wears the
parody.
little dress and apron, and she's got her hair tied up and like pinned together to try and. It looks a bit messy, like she's done it in a rush and everything. And as she walks out, she's got a notebook in one hand and a pencil with it, and she's kind of brushing off the apron that she's just rushed to put on. And she looks up and stuff, and she's, "Oh dear me, sorry about the wait. Do you guys want to pick a table and we'll get started with your order?"
I sit back where I was originally.
Okay, as you wander back to your seat and sit down.
I look at her and I'm like, I have a few questions for you. What's your name?
Oh, my name is Lanira.
What?
I run the diner, the Destiny Diner, with my husband Finnegan.
My nephew's
been
name
a-
is Finnegan.
It's been a little bit since we've had a couple of customers, but I'm happy to have you guys drop in. Do you guys want to take a table though?
Okay.
I realize your friends probably picked one. You're all together, I believe.
Yeah, one more question. Where the hell are we?
Oh, that's a bit of a tough question. Let's get breakfast out of the way, and we'll talk during breakfast, hey?
Breakfast.
Two birds, one stone, hey? That's how it goes. That's how you guys' saying goes, right?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Wonderful.
Question: is she speaking all in common or in each of our different languages?
Each of you different languages. Yeah, it's registering in your brain differently and stuff. And the way she says it, it sounds almost like she's speaking with multiple voices. But it is understandable in each of your languages.
Demon.
And she pats her apron and stuff, like she's looking for something. She's, oh, shit. I'm always forgetting things. I'll be right back. Grab a table. I'll come get your order, get your drink started and everything. We'll have a lovely discussion. And she turns and spins on her heels and walks back into the room. And she's a bit of a strange woman. You see as she goes. She's got kind of a darker skin tone. The hair is messily piled up. But she has two golden eyes. Very, very pretty colored. And you actually can't place her race at first because it's a bit strange. She appears human when she first came out, but as she leaves, you notice she's got elvish ears and elvish angled face and stuff. And you're like, you can't imagine how you'd ever mistaken her for human in the first place.
Oh, she's changing.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
What color are Adron's eyes?
They're two different colors.
Okay, what color is Mom's eyes?
I can't remember.
You're supposed to know everything about your character's boyfriend's mother.
That he's
She
never
never
met.
got to go to a parent dinner.
A barbecue?
I don't have a parent dinner.
Okay.
Roll a history check for me. We'll see if you can remember.
Oh, okay. See if I can. No.
Can I try to remember?
Yeah, go ahead.
Try to remember.
See if you can remember the colors.
Oh, hit the floor. It doesn't count.
What is that?
No, that
That's a
doesn't count.
6.
Roll it again.
If I look
Doesn't
through my
count.
notes, I could probably find out, but like...
Okay.
9.
Okay.
Well, I have no clue.
I rolled a
what
6
color
plus
the phase
what?
eyes are,
Or-
but like
History.
History, which is
The-
intelligence.
the serpent captain.
I only got a 6, so...
her eyes
Only
were
got a
gold.
7.
Okay. You can't quite remember. It's a bit of it's been a while since you saw the picture. You didn't pay too much focus to the eye color.
Says me who was staring right at him.
You
For
do
like 30
remember that her eyes had been strange and that they'd been one color, but there had been a circle of silver around the pupil, and they don't look similar to Lanira's eyes, but you have a hint of a memory of seeing a pair of eyes that shared the same intensity in the coloring and stuff, except they weren't gold, they were silver.
No.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah.
Is it your
I thought the
girl?
Fae and the captain were connected.
From your little, like, when they were
I
in
want
the
to
tower?
sit differently. I'm gonna.
What if
Ah,
they were
yes, turn that
covered?
chair around.
No, it wouldn't be that.
No?
And the memory hits all of you.
Oh, that was fast.
Oh shit.
Oh no, I'm just saying you all like, you're aware, all of you, that at some point you've met someone with eyes that matched this type of look, this type of coloring, except they were silver, not gold.
Oh.
Can I try and roll? Because I didn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
History?
Yep.
16?
16? Okay. Thinking back, you're very sure that these aren't the same type of eyes that Adron's mother or even your guys' like retinue of servants back at the manor. Their eyes were black, generally fully black.
Oh, that's right.
Some of them had more vibrant eye colors, but they all shared a silver ring around the pupil, or they didn't have a pupil.
Eating Timbits. Continue.
Tabik, you do remember 3 people, though. And they're quite clear in your mind. You'd only glanced at the 2 of them. You'd only seen partially. But you do remember, firstly, in the Monk's Hood Tavern, when you'd run into the woman named Salone and her companion. And they'd both had these startling... I just had a timid thrown at me. They both had startlingly metallic eye colors. And for a second, you feel the flash of a memory begin. And then it's as if someone has snapped in your ear. And it draws your focus away, and the memory slips out of your head before you can remember who exactly you were thinking of so hard. Take this back. I don't want it.
Sorry, I was just trying to finish my hot chocolate because it wasn't hot chocolate anymore. It was tepid chocolate.
Right. Yeah. So you can remember someone like this, but the second you think you've got it, you remember exactly who it was. It's as if someone snatched the memory.
Well, okay. Can I look out the window quickly?
Yeah.
Just like...
Yeah, it's... You can't see through this kind of storm, but it is a swirling mass of black sand intermingled with gray and gold flecks every once in a while.
Okay, I'm gonna sit down with Baz.
Okay.
No, across from you.
I'm gonna wait outside the door for the lady to come back out.
Okay.
I could just sit down.
Shin, Tabik. Sorry, what was that, Tabik?
Sure, he'll sit down somewhere.
Okay, so you guys sit in the booth.
Are you gonna sit in
Other
the
than Kizza. Shin?
I think I'm gonna go over to the booth, but I'm not gonna sit. I'm just gonna kind of stand.
You like cool guy lean against the backing
Against the
of one of the booth chairs.
Wow.
Shin is
The
a
woman
very cool guy,
returns
okay?
after a moment, and as she comes out, she's changed once again. Her figure and form has changed once again. She's slightly larger this time, and rather than the pointed ears, she's got almost pointed, but not quite. She's also got 2 large tusks that jut from her bottom lip, and a strange, almost green hint to the normal dark brown of her skin. She looks half-orc at this point, and she comes towards you guys, and as she walks across, she kind of passes Kizza, and she looks and she just nods her head as if to get you to follow, and she stops in front of your table, and as she's gone, she's began to morph again. Whatever is happening with her, it's not sticking very well. It's not focused on one thing or the other. It seems a little bit like she's scatterbrained at the point. And she morphs once again, and this time she seems to shrink just the slightest bit. And she loses the tusks and stuff, but she seems to take on a little bit of a burlier build to her. And she's not quite as short as she probably would be, but she does look quite dwarvish.
Do I recognize her from anywhere or any of her forms?
You don't. No, she doesn't look familiar whatsoever. You can't imagine when you would have met this woman or why you're here. But you can tell definitely that she's having a little bit of trouble in holding her form.
I tap her on the back.
Yep.
And I lean close to her and I just kind of whisper, "You know you're changing, right?"
She starts for a second and stuff, and she looks down and stuff, and she's once again shrinking a little bit to take on a more gnomish appearance. Now her eyes are getting a little bit bigger and stuff, and she says, "Oh shoot, I've totally forgotten to focus." And she snaps her fingers, shoots up like a bean sprout, and she takes on a very human look to her. And it seems to flicker for a second like it's trying to change again, and then it settles and she stays human this time.
Okay.
Is she over by our...
Yeah,
booth?
she's standing in front of your guys' booth now. And she looks around, she says, "So, what can I get you to drink?"
Miss, are you captured?
Captured? Oh dear heavens, no! I've only gotten my freedom.
Well, this is awkward.
She tilts her head a little and she says, she's a bit confused and stuff. She says, "Drink?"
not ale.
All right. Well, apple juice.
Damn it.
Mr. Dwarf?
Coffee.
Wonderful. One coffee coming right up. Got the best beans.
Yummy.
Talos beans? Or do you want something more Kavit style?
I'm sorry, you're gonna look at the map and...
No, because
No, you're just gonna like, oh
I'm
yes,
like,
can I have a... Oh yes, please.
where would I get like the coffee from Yakin? Like where the beans come from there?
So coffee from Yakin would be a bit difficult, but definitely Kavit. You've never tried Talos beans?
What the fuck is? Oh, there it is. Never mind.
So Kavit is the large, jungle-populated continent. You've never actually tasted Talos
Just take...
coffee.
You've never tasted Talos.
You know, I've never tasted Talos, but I usually get Kavit.
Kavit.
If you got any.
Kavit. Lovely. Coming right up. We've got a large stock of them. Finnegan loves it.
He's like 7 years old.
Tavik,
That's fine.
what about you?
How? Not you.
No, you're not
Not
Tavik.
you.
You're not Tavik.
No. How did you... Wait.
Oh, shush,
hell,
dear.
Shit. Oh, shit. Wait.
No! It clicked!
You guys are all like standing there like, you're not Tavik.
No, I know.
I can't hear Tavik's drink order, guys.
I'll pass, thank you.
Nothing for you.
You're gonna get dehydrated.
I'm fine.
Wonderful. Kissa?
Have we met?
In a roundabout way. Not for a while, though. Or
Right.
perhaps not until a while from now.
Mr. Backhand.
What?
I get a little bit confused.
He doesn't know your name.
Anything, though?
Shit, you're right.
Are you done loud whispering?
You know what?
Maybe.
I have an allergy, so I think I'll pass.
To water?
Pass it again. Wonderful. So that's going to be an apple juice and a Kivik coffee. Wonderful. I'll be right back with your drinks if you want to take a look at the menu. Decide what you want for food. We've got a large range. Basically anything you want, Finnegan can make. He's quite good at that. And she gives this final smile. And as she smiles, her teeth are human enough, but they've got like a slight point to them. Not in the same way that the Fae you've seen have. Theirs have been like shark teeth pointed. Hers are pointed to enough where they'd be able to easily rip meat and stuff, but not to the point where they look totally carnivorous. She'd still be able to eat plants and stuff. I'm describing her like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
They're pointed enough where they're not.
She's like
White
not
human.
a meat eater, but like also.
I was gonna say, Reese, are we on a dig site or a diner?
Dig sites and diners.
Diners.
They're
dig
not.
sites.
They're not
New
quite.
type of D&D.
Diners, dig sites, and dragons. There it is. They're not quite pointed enough to not be human, but they are just slightly above human. And she turns with a final smile, and she stuffs her notebook into one of the pockets of her little apron, and she disappears into the swinging door again.
With zero hesitation, I say out loud, loud enough for everyone in the diner that's here to hear. What the fuck?
You hear a slight voice call out from inside of the kitchen, and the door opens slightly as she pokes her head. She says, "Oh, please, Kissa dear, I know you're a little bit confused, but no swearing in the diner. We try to keep it PG-13 here."
She knows your name.
Pardon.
What's my name?
What the heck?
You're a bit young, but Charlotte, I believe. I've only met you in passing. I've heard a bit about you, but I believe it was Charlotte.
Yes.
Wonderful.
What's my last name?
Darling, you don't have a last name. Come now.
She's right.
What about me?
I have no clue.
Hey, I told you.
I'm sorry. I've probably met you at some point. I'm just not good with remembering people who aren't integral to what I've done.
You're not part of the main
ouch.
I'll be
story.
right back.
Just get out.
I'm sorry. I don't know people that like don't make a difference in my life.
No, and she says it isn't like. She says it in like. She's caught your name in passing before, like you've been mentioned to her, but she's never actually met you, so she hasn't remembered it.
She is next to me, and you are not a part of it. Get out.
Bye, guys.
You kind of get the feeling that she knows
Okay.
a lot of you, and she's probably met quite a few people running this diner or whatever it is she does. But she seems a bit too scatterbrained to quite remember everybody.
Oh.
She's a little all over the place when as she works. But she disappears back into the kitchen. And it takes about 3-4 minutes before she comes out again. And she's got a small little tray that she's balancing a nice little apple juice, and it's in one of those containers with the lids and the bendy straw for the kids that kind of like does the loop-de-loop thing, and a small little coffee on the tray. And she sets it down and she hands it both to you, and she says, now then, what can I get you to eat?
Who are you asking first?
Well, anyone that's got their order ready, I guess. Can I recommend the pancakes? Finnegan makes lovely pancakes.
Can I get everything on the menu, please?
Everything on the menu.
And I said please, Mr. Batman.
Good.
Are you sure you can eat it all?
Yes.
You've got an extensive menu.
Yes.
No, she's not gonna do that. She's gonna get the pancakes.
No.
She's
Wonderful.
not paying, I am.
Pay. Oh, darling, no. This has been covered. It's on a friend's
Then
tab.
I'll get everything
worry
on
about
the
it.
menu.
No, you're
Friends
not.
tab.
No, you've already been paid for.
She's getting
Um,
pancakes.
No.
Strawberry, chocolate, or honey?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Wonderful, darling. Chocolate chips as well, or no?
Yes, please.
Great. I'll write that down. Get that to Finnegan right away. Anyone else?
Beans and toast, please.
Beans and toast, a classic.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
It's so
It
weird.
really, really is.
It's so weird.
It's a big one in England.
I'm having a lot of thoughts right now.
Tavik, you got an order?
I'll pass, thank you.
Nothing for Tavik then? Drow?
I'm trying to think of what Shin's doing right now because he is suspicious as fuck.
Right now, because there's panic.
They apparently have good pancakes. Charlotte would not recommend them, but I would.
I'm not feeling very hungry right now.
Alrighty, nothing for you. Kizar?
I'll have a large order of some answers, please.
It's funny right away then. I'll just get you the regular then. Wonderful. Anything else, or is that all?
Do I know Finnegan?
Finnegan?
Yeah. You know me, so would he know me and I know him?
I don't think he was along the last time I met you. No, I don't think you'd be familiar with Finnegan, no. My husband's he's a bit of a recluse, we'll say. Anything else to order? We've got lovely breadsticks.
Breadsticks!
Breadsticks?
No.
No? No
I'll
breadsticks?
pay for her breadsticks.
Breadsticks!
I've already said lovelies, you're already paid for.
I'll get her breadsticks.
Breadsticks, wonderful. I'll get those down. Do you want the classical sauce or the mystery sauce?
Don't be doing
Both.
drugs.
Both? Oh, spicy. And she... It's one reaction to spicy. Bella's just fallen off her chair. You alright there, doll?
I'm fantastic!
Nice.
Wonderful, okay.
My scales kept me safe. High five.
No.
Okay, so Lunira
High five.
gives a smile once again. She says, I'll be right back with your order then. Finnegan shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. Any requirements you need, just call. I'll hear you. It's pretty easy.
I had to call.
and she turns around again. She begins to make her way back into the kitchen. And you hear her voice raised a little higher, as if she's like yelling out the orders to someone. And you hear a gruffer, more masculine voice call back. You're not quite sure what the words are and stuff, but it sounds like an affirm. She's like, okay. And you guys are left on your own while they make their food.
Does anybody recognize their voices? Sorry, no. Question before that. Were their voices changing along with their bodies?
The gruff one is not. It's the first time you've heard it.
Well, yeah.
But it seems steady. Lynira's, when she was originally going through her form change the problem, it was kind of the tilt was going up and down, but it's steadied out since then.
Can I roll to see if I recognize it in any shape or
Yeah,
form?
that. Sure.
Roll me a history check.
History? Okay, what is history? Frick. Intelligence. Okay.
17.
17.
8.
Okay. You have an inkling of a thought before it's just gone, as if it's you were trying to call to memory something you don't have recollection of, and it was there for a second, but it's simmered down. It's like the barest poke. Shin, you have never met this woman in your life. You have no idea what's going on right now.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem familiar in any way, shape, or form. Charlotte, you don't find her familiar, but you feel like you know her.
I got a 15.
Like you haven't met her before, but you know her in some form.
Do you know
Baz,
her or
you
know of
just
her?
like Shin, you have no fucking clue who this woman is. She seems nice enough, but you don't know who she is. Tavik?
Baz's high five has been rejected.
17.
You're very sweaty.
Tavik, you get a flash of a memory. And it starts off quite strange. You're looking from your own perspective, but you feel small, very, very small. And you're looking up into what looks like a snowstorm. And standing above you are two people. And one of them looks vaguely reminiscent of Lynira, only she's younger. She doesn't quite have the graying in her hair. She seems a little bit more vibrant in tone, and she looks younger than she is right now. And the other one, you can't quite make out. It's as if the person's there, the face is there, but you can't tell who it is. It's more masculine in form, and it seems to be wearing this kind of silver cloak, but the actual face isn't hidden whatsoever. It's just blurring and shifting and morphing. You can't tell who it is. And just as soon as it comes, it's gone. And you're back in the diner. Lynira seems very familiar to you, but you can't quite place where from.
Why do you do this?
Reasons. Okay. Lynira comes back through, and this time she kind of backs out, and she's got two trays on either side, and she comes up to you guys, and she begins to offload the pancakes, the beans and toast. I was trying to say eggs and toast. Begs and toast. The beans and toast. She puts out the breadsticks, and she takes the two trays under her arm, and she kind of goes behind the bar and slides them under the bars and stuff. And she comes back over and she grabs up a chair and puts it at the end of the table and takes a seat. And she just for Shin and Kizza to sit down and stuff. And she says, "So then, answers, shall we? I suppose you have quite a few questions. I'll let you get them out of the way first."
I'm just eating.
Yeah, we're eating right now, so we're just like,
Yeah, same.
where are we?
Why is the door locked?
That's a good one. That's a good question. So the door isn't locked so much as it's got nowhere to open to. We're not quite in your plane. which is a bit, I know it sounds a bit weird, and I know it sounds a little bit crazy. I promise you it's not. We're in my own plane, I'll say. The diner's plane.
Okay. What exactly are you?
That's a bit of a harder question. How much do you know about your history? About the world's history, about our history?
That's a good question.
Can
I
Roll me a history or religion check.
History or religion?
Or religion. History or religion. You can choose to look at them either way.
It's in that one.
Well done.
14.
Oh, I'm over the counter.
As these eggs and toasts are really good.
I got
14.
Roll again.
What is it?
I got a 6.
If I let you roll again, I have to let him roll again.
Do it.
We're eating though, so I mean, like. It's
Oh,
kind of
that's
a
true.
thing.
Yeah.
You're not
Fine.
quite
I
paying
should focus on
attention.
the food.
You know quite a bit, but like at this point, these pancakes are fucking amazing. Okay? And like I'm not just saying that because you rolled low. Like these are like the best pancakes you have ever
What
tasted.
about those
This
breadsticks?
food is great.
What about the breadsticks?
You haven't gotten to the breadsticks yet, but just the aroma of them is lovely.
Cool.
Kizza, you rolled what?
14.
14. And Tavik?
15 religion.
15 for religion. You guys rolled history or religion?
History.
History?
I think I rolled. It doesn't really matter which one I rolled, but I think I rolled religion.
Religion? Okay. So we'll start with Shin. Shin, you know a good bit about the history of the world now. Adron had tutored you a little bit, so you could get a grasp of what was going on. And you know the vague comings and goings of how countries rose and fell and empires and all that sort of stuff. Your history stops after a little bit, and you know there's not quite as much information about the original start, about how you guys got here, or how you founded the original kingdoms and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's about as far back as your thing goes, but you know quite a fair bit, you'd say. Kizza, you haven't studied them during your time in the forest and with the wolves and everything. You've kind of been on your own a bit, but the gods have always brought you a sense of comfort. It's a bit off, but they do in some ways remind you of home, of a place you have. You know the basics of the different pantheons of the different countries and worlds. You've never actually heard the beginning tale, as you'd probably call it, the origin of the gods and the planes and the worlds and everything. But you do know that at some point the gods were created, and they ruled and they've prospered. Tavik, you rolled a 15?
Yeah.
Okay. You have studied the gods. They're a big part of your life as a cleric, and you know a lot of their different fables and tales, and you also know that there is no origin story. As far as you're concerned, the gods were created one day, and they've ruled since, but you don't know why they're here, or who created them, or what's going on. But in your studies, you've come across bits and pieces, specks of information that don't quite fit with the people you have now, that speak about something older.
Hi.
Charlotte, you know quite a bit about the gods.
I only
However,
rolled a 6 though.
these pancakes are amazing.
Yeah.
And you're a bit distracted, because Finnegan has done a top-notch job on them.
Good job, Finnegan.
Are you gonna yell that to the kitchen?
Baz, you didn't even hear the question.
I'll tell 'em later.
Okay.
It's fine.
You're engrossed in these beans and toast. This is probably the first real good beans and toast you've had since leaving Yakin.
How long ago was that, Blood?
6 years ago?
6. Oh.
Around there?
Yeah, it would have been about 6. 5 to 6.
Jeez,
Like
we
when
left
I was
Tom
a
around the same
child.
time. Well, I mean, okay, no, it wouldn't be when. No, because I don't know how much time he spent in the Underdark.
Yeah,
just
you-
trying to fight his way out.
getting out of the Underdark. I think you spent about 3 to 4 years with Adron.
Yeah.
Before that, it would have taken maybe 6 months to get out.
Yeah. So
So
Around the
about
time,
4.5 years. So
Yeah.
Baz was definitely left beforehand,
Yeah.
just because of when he left.
Yeah.
But you guys would have been connected at the same point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's asked you guys about how much you know, and you kind of take a little bit of time to tell the stories that you do know, go over a little bit of the history of the world and stuff. You tell about the discovery of Kavit is something that Shin brings up because it fascinated you a little bit, and Adron loves the story of Kavit and stuff, about how it was this old jungle country and stuff that they hadn't done a lot, but they're just starting to encroach on it to open up and make it a kingdom. They tell you the story of Nazar, about how the gods painted the deserts and built the mountains from their clay.
So by the time all of this is done, are we done yet?
You've started to finish up a little bit.
Okay.
They kind of you give a rundown, a little bit of a story about it, not quite like the full story thing, but you give a general evaluation of your knowledge, and she kind of nods and leans back and stuff, and she says, well, that's all pretty correct. Yep. You don't know about before though, which is a bit of a problem. Where to start? I suppose the beginning would probably work.
Probably.
Let me give you a bit of a crash course. And she begins to tell you a tale. And as she does, she moves her hands as she tells to gesticate the stories, and as she goes, you actually see these sands outside of the diner begin to take on the images that she is describing. And she starts off by telling you about a desert called the Oblivion. And it is a desert made of black sand and howling wind and bitter cold. And there is nothing in it, and there is nothing that has ever been in it, nothing that ever will be in it. And then there's a light. And she calls this light the Ald. And she says it is the oldest of anything we know. It is creation and light and everything that we have ever been. And the Ald was alone in the Oblivion, and he was terribly, terribly lonely. So the Ald created 4 beings. We call these beings the nymphs. And to each of his daughters, he gifted a seed for a tree. And they went out and they spread across the 4 corners of the Oblivion, and each of them planted in turn their tree. And the trees grew to be the pillars of what we know now. The first tree, planted by the nymph named Perens, is the tree of the Mother of Stars. The second tree, planted by the nymph Vitesse, is the Father of Neutrality. The third, planted by Vividius, is called the Home Tree. And each of these trees was magnificent. They stretched onwards and upwards for forever, unending in their growth. In their branches they cradled the plains, they created life and light and death and magic. But they were separate. Even together they were so far away from each other that nothing could branch the gap. And that is where the 4th nymph comes in. And we know not of her name now. But once upon a time, she was named the Iron Queen. And she planted her tree, and she saw that her sisters could not speak to each other, could not visit each other, the planes could never cross, and she made a decision. With one swoop of her power, she cut down her tree, laid it down across the Oblivion to create the bridge, so that each of her branches would reach out to her sister's trees, connect them all, weave the planes together to create what we know now as our world. The nymphs, glad for her their sister's sacrifice, named her their queen. And she sat at the center of the bridge, right in between all 3 of the trees, and she ruled. But as all things do, darkness is not a fun thing, and it is always found. To combat that which would seek to kill their trees, to end what they had made, they created the Dragar. The closest thing to what they were was, I believe you call them dragons now, but the Dragar were far greater, far more powerful. They were big enough to eat continents whole, powerful enough to create new ones. They were ultimate beings of destruction and life and purity and chaos mixed into one, and each of them was to protect a plane of the trees. Perens made 3. Seraph, who protected the plane of death. Veltor, who protected the plane of material. And Nem, who protected the plane of life.
Wait, I missed that. I was texting Void to Danny.
Jason, we can always go back and listen to the stream.
Okay.
That's what I do when I'm writing out the notes.
Vividius created 4 for each of the 4 planes in her tree.
Sorry, did you say 4 or 4 that time?
4.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
Bella's done. Bella's leaving.
Fortesh, the protector of the plane of spirits. Yugavir, the plane of monsters. Hirhaga, the plane of gods. And Galafor, the plane of elements. Vitez, the nymph of the father of neutrality, created 3 dragons. Dragar. Jur, the plane of magic. Tahir, the plane of energy. And Nir, the plane of time. The Iron Queen also created 3, but she possessed in her branches only 2 planes. The first of her Dragar was named Velinor, the plane of order. The second, Kurta, the plane of chaos. And the third she created solely for the purpose of protecting the bridge, the tree that she had cut down to connect all of her siblings. And I cannot tell you his name as a personal favor, he's asked. But know this, he is and will always be our guardian, our guide, our oldest and most powerful of our Dragar. He is the protector of the bridge and all that connects us. The Dragar went forth into the land between each of the planes. They created the world, they created the seas and the storms and the mountains and the trees. Some of them fell. They left the branches of our mother trees. They fell in love with mortals. They married. They found themselves among people that they could be who they were. They created the gods to watch over their planes, to influence the world that they were now in, and they left. Each left one dragon, one Dragar, to protect the tree in their absences. For Perens, it was Veltor, the Dragar of the plane of material, who stayed behind. Vates left Tahir, the plane of energy. Vividius left Fortesh, the plane of spirits. And the bridge, well, the Iron Queen, left the last of our Dragar, the greatest. Many things happened during the time in which the Dragar took their form among the earth. Some of them died, created the mountains out of their bodies, the rivers and seas out of their wings. Some were slain. They let forth monsters upon the world. The dragons burst from one of my sisters. Children, barely grown, hence their size and stature now, but they spilled forth, populated the world. All manner of things happened. But what we did not foresee is our reason for creation. The Dragar were made originally to protect the trees, to protect them from the darkness, and we had left our duty. And the darkness had seen this. Starting slowly, it began to corrupt the roots of the bridge. It began to crawl up the trunk. Before it could reach the branches, the core of the tree, before it could collapse the bridge and take the planes with it, the nymphs teamed together. They took each their dragar, and they rode into battle, leaving their sister, the Iron Queen, to protect and rule over their planes in their absence. But they did not return. And the Iron Queen, knowing that if the darkness was allowed to continue, it would collapse the bridge, it would ruin everything they had spent so long building, took a step that crippled the power of the trees. Leaving her essence, the seed that had once grown her tree, in the protection of the Ancient One, the dragar that protected the bridge, she took into battle herself, and it was felt across the plains when she fell. But she did not fall without reason, for she took with it the darkness, and she took with it the roots of the tree, cut them from the actual soil of the oblivion so that it could never be tainted again. Of those dragar that had come to Earth, some of them fell of sorts. They unimaginable power rested in their bones, but it cannot be contained within such a size as mortals. And so they chose to give up some of their power, some of their essence and being to the actual trees that had fed them, and settled down. I found love in Finnegan, my husband, for many, many years, and giving up my original form, I was allowed to stay here. I cannot return to the trees, but I do not lack the influence I once had. So, that was a bit of a long conquest. Questions?
So which one are you?
I mean, my
smart
first
question.
remark was gonna be, shit!
No swearing in the diner.
Oh,
A smart question, Mr. Dwarf. My name now is Lanira, but once I was known as Nier, the Dragar of the Plane of Time.
Is that perhaps why you keep saying that you've seen us in a time
Yes.
not necessarily plausible?
It is strange to comprehend for you, but I do not exist in one instance over any other. I have seen what you would call the future and what you would call the past, and yet, to me, it is the present. Always the present. I have met each of you at some point, though I might not remember it yet, or I may not have done so for yet. But to reveal too much to you would harm you, unbalance what you are capable of wrapping your minds around. You are mortal, and sadly that has its drawbacks.
Well,
So,
kinda. You try to snap.
yes. Thanks. Charlotte snapped, and somebody did the voice for the sound for her. May I ask who Finnegan is?
Oh, of course. I haven't introduced you, have I? It'll help to get us off this track. Finnegan, darling! Finnegan! Come out here, please. Come on. Oh, I'm sure they won't be scared. Come. And you hear the sound of footsteps, and they're quite heavy footsteps. And the door swings open, and you catch sight of a torso, and legs and pants and shirt and everything. But you can actually see the head of this person because they are currently standing too tall to walk through the doorway. And
Okay.
they bend down slightly to like shuffle through and into the actual diner. And the roof of the diner is actually quite tall. It just seems the doorways are a little bit short. And standing there is a half giant.
Half?
A half giant.
Well.
And he's got the height, definitely. He's big and burly. He looks vaguely like a Goliath would, except that he has long hair that's been tied up in like a circlet of braids almost, and a big beard. He looks very lumberjack-like in his stature.
With the beard and the headband?
Slightly.
That's the taller. Much taller.
He's a little bit different, but he's got the build and height of a small giant, a very small giant. But he is humanoid in look. He's got the kind of the same facial structure, the same ears and everything. It just seems he's a bit tall. He stands about 8'4".
Andre the Giant.
Holy shit.
He's quite big, but he's not to the point where it's like towering over you.
Well, it is.
It is towering over Baz. He's quite scary to you, Baz. He's got a lovely red hair coloring and 2 bright emerald eyes and tan skin and stuff. And he looks nervous, like he's not quite used to meeting too many people. And he's kind of got like this like thing where he's like crossing his arms and kind of like fidgeting, trying to make himself seem smaller. He doesn't quite feel comfortable around you guys, but he does make his way over.
I love him.
Charlotte slowly raises their hand, like I'm doing it, and she's just like, good pancakes.
And he kind of he rubs the back of his neck and like he blushes and stuff. He says, "Thanks."
Charlotte made a
Tirza,
friend.
without missing a beat, goes, "Wow, it must be very hard to do certain things as a couple."
Laniera does not miss a beat as her form seems to flicker
Oh my
and
gosh.
morph until
No.
she becomes a half giant.
No! You weren't supposed to say that!
And she looks over at you, Kizza, and she winks.
I wink back. I go,
And she says, "We've had lots of practice."
I go,
Gosh, you guys.
Okay, let's get back on the story. It's not that bad ending.
And then she morphs back into her more humanoid version, and Finnegan grabs 2 chairs and like puts them together and like sits on them like very very carefully, like he doesn't want to break them and stuff. They're fine. And he's kind of just sitting next to Laniera. He looks a little bit out. He's got like his knees come up to the point where he can like rest his elbows on them and stuff. And he looks like a small child. He looks like a big dude who's sitting in like a kid's chair.
Yeah. Same.
Laniera looks at all you guys and she waves a hand to him and says, "This is my husband Finnegan. He's a lovely man. He's a bit of a shy one. We're working on it though. Finnegan, this is... Well, I'm not actually quite informed of all your names. This is Kizza and Tabak and Charlotte, I believe. I didn't catch your names."
Jonathan.
Baz.
No, don't fucking say
Thank
my
you,
name.
Kizza. That's quite nice.
Shin.
Shin and Jonathan Baz.
Johnny Bad.
And Finnegan waves like a hand slightly off his knee and like, "Finnegan." He seems a bit uncomfortable. It seems he likes to stay backstage because it keeps him out of the sight line of people. He seems a little bit antisocial.
No, are they a god or are they a dragon?
So
No, they're a dragon.
They're-
They're
They're-
like, are they god dragon kind of thing?
Kind
no,
of.
No,
Yeah.
the dragons are
they're
above the gods?
dragon-like, except you had actually been able to see kind of the pictures as they had been woven outside. When she had described the Dragar, They had taken on the form of dragons, but they had been slightly different. The scales, for one, had not been a singular color, like you'd have a green dragon or a gold dragon and such. They'd been intermixed. Some of them had black scales with gray and gold flecks in between, which had actually been the image she'd shown you when she had described herself near. There had been other dragons which had been differently colored and scaled and everything. They look vaguely dragon-like, but there are slight differences off. For one, their wings are bigger and not quite feathered, but they don't look. They look almost gossamer-like, like a butterfly wing look. Some of them had multiple wings. Some of them had multiple heads, or more legs than 4. Different sizes and stuff. They look dragon-like, but definitely not dragon.
Cool.
Sorry to butt in. Is there a reason why you don't know who I am? I'm pretty big.
He's really not.
No, there's
Pulls up my 80,000 business cards now.
the way time works is a bit of a strange one. I know Kiza and Tabak, and in a way Charlotte, because I've met them before, because I know them from my past. Your past, it's a bit different for me. You would know it as the past, most likely. You, Shin, I've most likely come across in my wanderings. I tend to know people, run into people, and I've seen kings and queens and wizards of amazing power. I've seen monstrous men, and I know peasants in the lowest of towns and the smallest of cities, but I have never quite met you yet. If that can help you to understand.
Did you meet me in the past?
In a way. It was, at the time, it would have been your future, but now I would say the past. I could not quite. You bear a mind unlike others. He's a soul that has seen conflict in its deepest of times and starkest of times, and I offered you a favor to let you restart, rebuild yourself. A favor was called in with a friend of mine, but I have met someone who was you, not who might be you.
Is Finn, are you a Dragar?
And Finn kind of like, he gives like a chuckle and stuff. He doesn't answer. Lynira actually answers for you, and she says, sadly no. Finnegan was entirely mortal. Because of the way my powers work, he is undying as long as he remains within my power. But he does not possess the same magic, the same energy I do. No.
Nice. So you don't know, do you know where the other Draga would be? Or if we're gonna run into any?
Others know, some yes. What happened after we left the tree, I do not know all of it. I know that one of my brethren lives in a place that even now escapes my notice, but others have disappeared. They could be alive, they could be long dead, they could be masqueraded as mortals, or they could have returned to the tree. I know of some of where they might be, but nothing concrete.
So you don't have many family get-togethers?
Not the entire family. No. And the way she's explained it is she might know where they are, but she might not, because all of time is the present to her. So she might have knowledge of where someone will be or where someone was, and it might seem like it could be now, or it could be then, whenever, right? It's like knowing that at some point someone has lived in this house, but not knowing whether it was beforehand or whether they're going to move into that house or whether they're doing so now. She knows the vague idea of where they could be at any given moment, but not what that moment would be.
So she knows where everyone has and will be,
But she doesn't know
but
how
she
to
can't-
tell
she can't-
which it is.
She can't
Okay.
put it into order, right?
Yeah, okay.
That's understandable.
Like, she'd know
That's okay, honey.
It's
that
okay, I
Charlotte
can't get my life in order
had
either.
at one point been at the tavern Adron ran, and then at the Matter. But for all she knows, it could have been switched. It could have been the same time. She can't order them
Okay.
correctly.
Okay.
Her time doesn't work linear.
Cool. Bless you.
Any other questions?
I was gonna say, do you know?
Yeah, when did we meet?
That was fine.
That is a tougher question.
Yesterday.
Tabik,
Last Tuesday.
we have not left each other in quite a way. When I had first met you, you were very, very young. Barely born. You were months old, perhaps. But our meeting left a part of myself entwined with your being. Is as a favor to an old friend. I could not pinpoint for you the exact whereabouts or why or how or when without breaking said favor, said promise. Hold bear that in all reality, at some point, you will be allowed this knowledge. You will, and I will gladly hand it over. I will gladly tell you everything that I know of you, but to break the promise that I have made would put me back thousands of presents from now in what I have done, what we have all done for the tree, the very energy of this plane.
You can break some rules. It's fine. Maybe.
There are
Depends.
less rules than they are honor, debt. I owe quite a lot to the one that I have promised, and should I renege on my promise, the clapback would be horrendous. I can offer you this. And she digs in her apron again, and she pulls out a coin. And it's distinctly a coin, you can tell that, but it's not a coin that you've ever seen before. It looks far older than the ones you carry now, and while it is done in a golden coloring, it does not bear the same marks of the coins you have in your person right now. And she hands it over, and it has on it an engraving of a pair of spears crossed over, and behind the spears stretch two wings. And she says, a token from your past, I would say. Or perhaps a token for your future. And she hands it to you.
I'll take it.
That was the most resigned "I'll take it" that I've heard.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it.
Get me alone. I'm trying to type this as he's saying it. I'm gonna take notes, okay?
No other questions? Wonderful. Time for answers then.
That wasn't an answer.
And she begins to rub her hands together as if she's preparing for something. Cracks her knuckles. Takes a second. She says, Finnegan, if you wouldn't mind fetching the bait box. And Finnegan nods, climbs up, and she heads back into the kitchen. And he comes back with a small tin. And it's one of those old, like grandmother sewing tins. And he hands it to her, and she opens it up, and she takes out a fish. A small fish.
Oh my god.
And she begins to whistle and kind of flop the fish back and forth. And it's a light whistle and stuff, and she's kind of looking around above your guys' heads and glancing around the diner and stuff, like she's trying to spot something. And it takes a second or two, and then all of a sudden you hear a bit of a squelch, and the top half of the fish is bitten off. But there's nothing there.
It's those weird things again.
Is it Trina?
She says, oh, come now, please. We've done this enough times at this point that you know the conditions of taking the bait. And you hear a bit of a huff, and then materializing, curled around her wrist, its mouth still chewing on the end of this fish, is a small dragon.
Trina!
And it's not tree nut,
Okay, you were wrong.
but it does in fact resemble tree nut.
It's Trina in an alternate universe.
It's a red dragon.
Trinidad's
A red pseudo-dragon.
Listen, speaking of
And it's got
Freeman
two
voice,
little curled horns on either side of its face. And it's got these wide, unblinking eyes that are just like anime-sized compared to its face. It's ridiculously big eyes.
Wow.
And it blinks up at Lanira as it like has half the fish hanging out of its mouth. And then it swallows the rest of it and kind of gurgles happily. And it looks expectantly at her, and she says, if you wouldn't mind, I do believe... Which one to grab? Which one to get?
Me.
I don't think it's about us.
I'm kidding, not me. I don't volunteer.
And she takes a moment, and she pauses, and she says, got it. And she whispers something in a language that seems far older, and it's filled with power. And somehow, some part of your brain recognizes this is her language. This is the language of the Dragar. This is the language of the nymphs. And it is beautiful.
Skyrim?
No, I did not say Skyrim.
And the little pseudo-dragon bobs its head, nods, and with a flicker of flame that begins at its tail and crawls up the rest of its body, evaporates. And Lanira says, it'll be not but 2 seconds, or 2 minutes, or I'm not quite sure. Time. And she takes a little pocket watch, and she taps it and stuff, and you see the actual hand is like spinning backwards and forwards and stuff, and just all over the place, and she says, useless. Closes it, puts it back in its pocket.
Would you like to borrow mine?
She grabs it, and it's working fine for you. It's a bit weird, but it does point to earlier in the morning. And the second she touches it, it begins to spin wildly again. She says, fuck this. Hands it back, and it goes back to normal when you're holding it and stuff. And she says, they never work for me, don't worry.
Oh, I have one.
What if you don't touch it?
Yeah, I just like hold it up.
The problem is, it's set to when you entered my domain. It's set to the time in which you will be returned to. But it does not quite correlate with the time here. And there's a puff of smoke, and curled around Baz's coffee, sipping out of the coffee, sits the dragon.
I'm sorry.
Reese said that too. No language heart in
It's sipping your coffee with this long kind of like serpent-like tongue and stuff, like a dog lapping at water. And it looks up at you when you exclaim, and it just kind of blinks, and then it goes back to sipping the coffee. And then it uncurls from the coffee and like moves out into the center of the table and does one of those like cat stretches.
You literally
And then it
just-
burps, and there's this puff of flame, and then appearing sat on the table is a little white bag with a familiar looking symbol on it because it's the two silver scales. Explaining the sales.
Hey!
And Lenora thanks the little thing, and he says, "Thank you, Kevin." And Kevin yawns and then curls up like a little cat and falls asleep in the center of your table.
Can I pull him over and just like put him in my lap?
He begins to purr.
Aw.
And she opens up the bag and she begins to rustle through, and she pulls out a scroll of sorts. And it's bound quite tightly. It's got a nice little like tie rope with two little charms dangling from the other side. And the one of them is a set of waves and the other one is a storm cloud. And she puts that down on the table, takes out a pair of sunglasses would be the closest thing to it. It's a pair of glasses almost, except that it's not got the bridges, it's just the actual lenses of the glasses. And she puts them down on the table. And then she pulls out a small box, and she puts the box in between you guys at the end of the table, and she says, "A present for later, you'll need it. Compliments of destiny. Feel free to look through it if you want. I've just got to grab one more thing from the back room." And she grabs the rest of the bag, and it jingles. You can tell there's something still in there, but she doesn't seem to need it for whatever's going on right now, and she goes back to the back room.
I have a very important question, which I'm pretty sure all of us forgot. Where's Arya?
Ari was not with you guys when you began to fall through the portal.
Lost her.
You forgot?
I have to take this out of my
Can
ear
I-
right now.
Attempt to open the box.
Yeah, so it opens easy enough. It's one of those like clothing boxes that's being closed, and it's got like a ribbon around it and stuff. You just kind of pull the ribbon, and it opens up, and inside is a selection of clothing. And it ranges. There's a set for each of you, and there's about two actually for each of you. One of which is your guys' own like matching family photo type Hawaiian shirts and cargo shorts. There's also a floppy hat in there, and some flip flops.
Oh god.
And the second thing is a set of swimwear for each of you. And you guys can choose whichever type of swimwear your character would wear.
Guys, it sounds like we're going on vacation.
They're telling
And
us
there's a
we're
little
just
note
best take a break.
inside
Well,
of the
our
box.
D&D campaign's over. We ended up in our final destination. It was great talking to you guys.
There's a little
You
note
stop
inside
yelling.
of the box
It's really bad.
that you guys pull out once you guys have each levied out your own clothing and everything. And which one of you is taking it?
King what?
There's a little note at the bottom
Me.
of the box. Baz.
Fine.
Baz got it first. So Baz, you kind of snatch it just as Charlotte goes to get it, and you go to get it, and you're like, you stop because the purring stops for a second, and then it begins when you sit back down quietly.
Yeah.
And Baz, the note is simple enough. It's in common, and it just reads, "No clue why you'd want them, but good luck with whatever vacation it is you're going on." And it is signed A.S. from Otto Silverscales.
I'm taking the flip flops and the Hawaiian shirt, by the way.
You each have a pair of Hawaiian shirts and
Yeah.
cargo shorts. And they're each done in your favorite colors.
Oh god.
Ew, it's brown.
Well, Baz's yours is like a brown, orange, and red.
Brown, and more brown.
The actual background color is a nice white, but like the flowers that have been done on them have taken on kind of like a fire color.
As like I said, I do not.
There's a set of flip flops for each of you as well in your own favorite colors. There's only one floppy hat but you can decide amongst yourself who gets that.
I'm good. I think you.
No.
Your
I think Shin would suffer through it. Not only that, he would probably suffer through the heat to not have to wear them.
Lanira comes
takes
back
my
at this
head.
point, and she has with her an item. And I have to get the description out for this item.
Okay, wait. No. Does anybody want the floppy hat?
No.
No.
Charlotte, can I have the floppy hat?
Charlotte gets the floppy hat. Charlotte gets the floppy hat.
Actually, I dare you to try and put it on Tabik.
It's like 12.
You really want to go there?
A little bit.
Floppy hat and a mullet.
She has with her a card, like a postcard type thing. And on one side, it's got the classical lines where you can write whatever you want to send. On the other side, it has a picture of the Diner of Destiny, Destiny Diner, and she hands it over and she puts it down on the actual table and stuff. And she says, "A couple of gifts for your next adventure," shall we say. The postcard is simple enough. If at any point you need to reach me, something big comes up, I can't promise I'll be able to help, but write whatever note you need to send, and click twice. If you have a fish, it'll help. Kevin will pick up the note for you.
Hell yeah.
We do not call just to see Kevin again.
Aww.
The lenses are a little bit more complicated. They allow the wearer to see things that are harder to see. To see things that might be hidden from you. Invisibility, fake disguises, all sorts of stuff. They don't quite work with these. Use them as you will. And the final one is perhaps the most important, a map. Everyone needs a map. And she begins to untie the map, and she rolls it out, and you guys kind of, like, move stuff to the side so you can do this. Finnegan's taking the plates and drinks and stuff that have been emptied now and returned back to the kitchen with them. And she rolls it out, and it's not the biggest map. It's quite small, actually. You could probably fit it in a smaller compartment if you need to. But it outlines an island. And after a minute of looking at it, it does resemble the island you guys had originally been falling towards. And it's got a mountain on one end, a jungle stretching out, and a coastline and beach on the other. There's a coral reef that rings around from the edge of the mountain, and the tip of the beach that rings around in a kind of like wall, almost. A couple of pillars of stone reaching out from this wall every couple of miles. And there are a section of small houses or buildings outlined. There's one large one that is set kind of on the brink of the jungle, but still on the sands. There's a couple of them dotted around the actual sand, and one or two higher up in the jungle and on the mountain. And it reads at the bottom, "The City of Storms, Ellison Resort." And she says, "I believe this will be useful for you."
Hi, sorry.
Yep, no, it's on Talos.
And that's
Wait,
the only one that's marked.
So, sorry, Talos
it really is.
Which one is that?
Talos is...
This one.
Like, sorry, like, what's the, like, jungle, desert?
It's there. The mainland is kind of grassland and normal forest and stuff. Not a lot of stuff happens in Talos. Like, there's a couple of smaller communities, but they don't have a lot of interaction with the outside world, so it's a bit difficult to get items and everything from there. You've heard a couple of stories, nothing of too much interest. The City of Storms itself is a bit of a weird thing, because you do know, you have heard enough about Talos that it's a small city built on the coastline, not on its own personal island. And this is definitely an island on this map. So it's being set aside somewhere. They're not quite sure where it could be around Talos, but it seems to be part of the Talos continent.
Can I roll to see if I know like anything else about Talos?
Sure.
Okay.
Roll me a religion check.
Oh, okay. I'd say 16.
16.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Let me find you a page.
Page. Oh, yes, lovely. I did some monk training on there. It was pretty sweet. Actually, no, this was like the monks R&R place.
Okay.
So the bathing
So
suits are
page
fine.
294, the deities of the Forgotten Realm. Talos is the god of storms. And he is a tempest god. And his symbol is 3 lightning bolts radiating from a central point. And you know that he's not the best dude.
Is he a dick?
He's chaotic
controls
evil,
storms.
so a
Oh
bit,
no!
yeah.
Oh,
He's a
hey!
giant
Whoa,
dick.
that is
He's quite a dick. You've never heard of him though. You get a lot of different. There's a lot of different stories about different gods and stuff. Some communities believe some gods to be totally the worst people in the world. Others think they're benevolent gods. There is a small section of Kavit, tribal Kavit, that worships Talos as a benevolent god. So there's mixed reviews, but you've heard quite a few more that say he's not the nicest dude.
I was gonna say, is there a Yelp for
He's got, if
gods?
he had a Yelp, there'd be a couple of 5 stars of people that are like, yeah, I fucking love this dude. He's great. He causes storms that bring in fish and help us get weather and stuff towards our needs. There's others that say he's sunk ships and entire empires under his wrath. So, it's a 50-50.
So
So
you
it's
have
either
the
5 or 0.
So you have the 5 stars are the people who left 1 because they couldn't leave 0.
Yeah.
There's the people that are never gonna get to goat help.
I guess.
Hey, does Baz know much about
Talos?
Talos?
Roll.
Or what? Just roll or?
Roll.
Religion.
Oh, it's +3.
Same.
I have +1 to
14.
religion.
You don't know him quite well. Like, you know he's a god, but he's not one of your pantheon gods. He's a bit out there for you. You do have an inkling of a memory of a group of travelers that had passed through Yakin at one point who had been advertising for his followers.
How? Don't question how. It's kind of like.
Yeah, no. They'd been passing through the mountains,
Okay.
and they'd come through Yakin at one point, and then they had done a small advocation for Talos as a benevolent god, and they'd had a brochure with them for a place called Elicid Resort. But you didn't pay them much attention when they were there, so you didn't end up grabbing one of their things.
Was I there when they were there or no?
You did. You were there, yeah. But you didn't pay too much attention to them. They did seem quite favorable that he was a cool dude.
I mean,
He's a cool dude.
if they're traveling around with a pamphlet, no kidding. Or else they're just like, ah yes, look at this pamphlet, don't go there.
You see this place? Don't do it.
Let me rip
Don't
this
do
up
it.
for you
They
so you
had
never
terrible service.
Yeah. You see all of these beautiful beaches? You definitely don't want to go here.
All these beautiful beaches, they've got maggots.
Yeah.
There's
You're just
monsters
like,
under the
"Oh,
tunnel."
Don't go there.
Though I got the worst sunburn and they wouldn't even give me sunscreen for it. No, they seem quite favorable with him.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's been like an hour and 40-some minutes
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah,
So
we wanna
let's
we should-
take a break.
Yeah.
You've done this. And
I
when
need
we
to stop
return,
stishing the table.
we'll see what happens.
Ooh.
Whoa.